So we are joined from Dallas, Texas, by my friend Captain Morgan Hornung with PSA Airlines. We thank you so much for taking some time for us today before you go to work. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. We're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools, Madison Central, Rosa Scott, Germantown High School, Ridgeland High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. We're in the supply chain and transportation career cluster, and aviation is such a big part of that. And we thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Of course.
Now, obviously, we want to talk about all the all the things that go into getting a plane from point A to point B, and all the training it takes to become a pilot. But first, give us a little background. You are originally from Texas, and you have spent a lot of time in aviation. So, just tell us about that path you took, because I know you went to Blinn Community College, got an associate's, and then have moved into aviation since then.
hmm Yeah, so I started going back to college. I started going to college in psychology, kind of didn't want to write a book because that's kind of how psychology is. Decided to go past that. And around that time, I actually lost my flight benefits. And so that was kind of a big thing because both my parents were in the aviation industry. My mom was a flight attendant. My dad, he's retired now, but he's a pilot. Yeah. So I had flight benefits through my parents. And so when you turn 24, you actually lose them. And I was kind of like, oh no, what am I going to do? Because when you grow up with those, it's kind of a big deal. And that's how I actually became a flight attendant. Was I didn't know that I wanted to do it, but I applied and I got in. I worked for American Airlines for as a flight attendant for about 3 years, and I started my flight training at the end of that 3 years, and went through the American Airlines Cadet Academy to do my flight training as well. So yeah.
Well, now I want to get into the flight training, but I also want to hit on flight attendant because I think that's one of the most misunderstood jobs in the world because it is not just passing out drinks and snacks.
Right.
Flight attendants have a very specified training
hmm
because there are a lot of customer service skills, a lot of safety involved, and they are very vital to the safety of a flight. So I think flight attendants are a great field to get into. So talk about the type of training that a flight attendant gets and why they're so important to aviation.
Yeah, the flight attendants, or at least my training that I went through at American, was 6.5 weeks of training. And I think about 98% of that training was all safety related. We had
Wow.
maybe one class about the drink cart and how to set it up and how to serve drinks and stuff like that, but 98% of that training is going towards the safety aspect of things, and like how to open the doors, how to get people out. And I believe it's 90 seconds or less is the FAA requirement to be able to get everyone off of every plane, even those giant ones. It's in 90 seconds or less. And so that's kind of what we're getting trained on, is how to get everybody out as fast as possible, as safely as possible, down the slides, open the doors, which doors to open when, what happens if you land on the land, what happens if you land in water. There's so many things that go into the flight attendant training that a lot of people don't realize. And most of the stuff that you learn about the actual service aspect of the job is mostly learned on the job. When you go, you actually do two training flights as well before you are completely graduated. And that's when you kind of see what the service side of the job really is.
Yeah, and and they are they always talk about frontline employees. They're the front line of the airline. They're what people
Mhm.
see. They're what people remember. In some airlines they have there's a sales aspect.
Mhm.
Selling the alcohol, selling I was on one airline, they were trying to sell me a credit card. So
Right.
it is there's a lot of sales on it as well. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, I want to talk about pilot training because I think a lot of people don't understand the different levels of pilot training because I hear a bunch of people say, well, I want to get a pilot license. Well, it takes more than just a private pilot license to become a commercial airline pilot
Yes.
because there's the pilot license, the instrument rating, and then several other steps as well. So just take us through that process because it is very, very difficult.
Hmm. Yeah, so the first step is you get your student pilot certificate. So that's kind of like your official, you have a card and everything that says you are officially in flight training. And that is required for you to go up and do your first solo, go on your cross country solos. So during your training, you even have a certificate for training. So there is a whole process. And the next step is once you finish all your training, pass your check ride, there's two portions of it. There's the knowledge portion, and then there's the flight portion, obviously. But a lot of people kind of don't think about the knowledge portion as much when they think about pilot training. And that's honestly one of those things that kind of sometimes will wash people out. So if people are interested in that in flight training, they need to know that they are going to be studying, and that is a big portion of it. It's half, if not more. And so, like I said, student pilot certificate. And then once you pass that truck ride, you get your private pilot certificate. And then private pilot just means that you can fly your friends, yourself. You can go buy a plane, fly wherever you want. You just can't get paid for it. So there's special rules and stuff that goes into that knowledge portion I was talking about, that how you're allowed to fly with a private pilot certificate. And then next step, most of the time, is what people take is instrument. You can kind of take them a little bit out of order, but private's always first. But instrument is what I did next, and that is learning to fly through the clouds. So that's all based on instrumentation inside of the flight deck. So that's why it's called instrument. And you're just learning. Now you know how to fly. Now you're learning how to fly just by your instrumentation, and all you learn all of the different aspects of things like that could go wrong if you are in the clouds, if you can't see the ground, if you lose instrumentation, what you're supposed to do, and then all of even the visual aspects to it too, where it's if you can't see the ground, just knowing how to know you're flying level, and that's everything that goes into like learning that instrumentation. And so you get a add-on to your certificate for that. It's not technically a new certificate, but it's an add-on to the private certificate. And then the next step after instrumentation that I personally did was commercial. And commercial is where you are learning. This one's a heavy on the knowledge portion because it's a lot of new information about, because you are now being able to fly and get paid. So commercial is the first step kind of to get to the airlines, where it's like you're not quite at the airlines yet, but you can get paid to fly. And so the commercial, you learn a lot more fine-tuned flying uh, maneuvers and stuff like that, just so you can show that you have mastered flying. And that is the next certificate. And after commercial, I did my CFI, which you technically don't need to do this to get to the airlines, but a lot of people do because it's one of the easiest ways to build your time. Because most of the time, there's different levels to it, but most of the time, people need about 1,500 hours of
Wow.
flying to get to the airlines, and that's just the minimum. And so a lot of people will get their CFI, which is Certified Flight Instructor certificate, and that one just involves, you're basically going back over all of the private information again, but now you have to teach it. So that, and also you have to teach it from the other seat. So that's kind of the first time you switch seats, get a little discombobulated from the other side, just because you would think it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but your hand switching, kind of which hand is flying and which hand is using the throttle, it will throw you off for a couple
For
flights.
sure.
Yeah, but so CFI, and then CFII is the Certified Flight Instructor instrument. So you can kind of see a pattern here. There goes private, instrument, commercial, and now CFI, CFII instrument. So you're learning all the instrument stuff, how to teach it, and then you also can get ground instructor certificates, but that's kind of a whole other thing that you can just legally like teach on the ground if you're not going to get your flight instructor. But and then after that, you get your multi certificate, and you can also get a CFI multi or a multi-engine instructor certificate as well. So multi-engine, obviously, you're learning now two different engines instead of just the one on the front.
Wow.
You have to have that in order to get to the airlines as well. I didn't personally get the instructor, multi-engine instructor, because that I didn't. You only need 50 hours to get to the airlines in the multi-engine. They pretty much teach you all of the rest of it when you get to the airlines if you don't have experience in it. But yeah, that's kind of the process I went through, almost step by step, and there's a lot of different certificates that are involved, and you pass one and you're like, yay, now let's go to the next one.
Now you mentioned all those certificates, and a lot of people say, "Well, that's a lot of school. I don't know if I can afford that." But there's a lot of great colleges where you can get at least a good portion of that before you Move on. I know here in Mississippi we have Hines Community College, which has a training airport, as well as
Mhm.
Delta State, which has the only aeronautic bachelor degree in the state of Mississippi. Embry-Riddle's a big one in Florida. So there are aeronautic college programs where you can, as a college student, get a lot of these certifications.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. There's colleges, there's even like I said, I went through the American Airlines Cadet Academy, so there's even airline programs that if you don't want to do the college route, you can do airline routes as well, which at this moment in time is the almost equivalent to getting a college degree. It used to be required, but not anymore right now. They could bring that back in the future. So um, I would recommend people try to get a college degree, especially just because we are starting to see a slowdown in the hiring at the airlines right now. I don't think it's kind of a wave where it'll slow down, speed up. And so if you happen to get there at a time that is hiring quickly, good for you. But if not, then you kind of need those extra little like notches on your belt of, okay, well, I have a degree, I have this much training, all of that kind of stuff goes into it. But college, I didn't personally go through a college route, but I think that would have been a good option if I knew I wanted to do this when I was younger.
Absolutely. Now, I want to come back to that, but I think something else. The kids may be saying, "Look, aviation may be cool to work in, but I don't want to go through all those years to be a pilot." There
Hmm.
are a lot of people on the air and in the ground that have a hand in getting a plane from point A to point B because luggage has to be handled in cases of cargo. UPS, FedEx, they've got to have people to move that. You've got to have good air traffic controllers. You've got to have good people on the ground. So, what are some of the other careers that people may not think about that have a huge hand in aviation?
Um, there's a ton. I go to the Women in Aviation conference every year, and just this past year at the conference, they had a lineup of different people that you just wouldn't expect or you didn't realize went into the whole process. So there's IT, there's just like social media, the marketing, all of that, anything lawyers, there's everything. So if you have a passion for a specific thing but still want to get into aviation, I can almost guarantee you there's a job for it. It's just it's kind of hidden behind some of the door because like most of the time, like you said with the flight attendants, they're up right there, they're the forward facing people at the airlines because they're the ones that are helping passengers out and gate agents obviously, but sometimes you just say hello, goodbye, but the flight attendants are kind of there. There's so many people in the background that are doing so many things just to get, yeah, like you said, the planes from A to B. And so like you said, rampers, there's the gate agents, there's ticket agents. Depending on where you live, sometimes the ticket agents will also be the gate agents. But if you don't if you don't want to go through all the training, there's that. But there's also like the fact if you don't want to be gone from home all the time, because right now I'm doing a lot of 4 day trips, and I'm kind of like, all right, well, I could be home a little bit more. So if we're one of those people that want to stay home, there's the gate agents, ticket agents, any of those positions, rampers. You get flight benefits still, but you don't have to do the flying, basically.
Yeah,
So
and also there's mechanics. If there's a minor problem on the plane, somebody's got to refuel it. Somebody's got to fix a minor problem so it can get back rolling. The airlines don't make any money if the plane's on the ground. So
exactly.
you got to have people there to, if there's air up a tire, get something out of a propeller. There have to be
Hmm.
people on the ground for that. And something else, I can't believe I didn't mention this. There's a lot of people that have prior military experience in this field, and they have not paid a dime. People have been paying them to get the training, and
Hmm.
I'm sure you deal with a lot of former military every day.
Yeah, there are a ton, and actually, I get that's kind of one of the number one questions that I get is how I got my hours in flight training, and most of the time, people expect pilots to say like through the military, and but so it's kind of expected just because that was the route before, that was the main way that people would get into the airlines. But it is kind of branching out now. But there are still tons of people that go through the military. And like you said, it's a great option because you can get all of your training for free. They pay for college, they pay for flight training. Obviously, if you're going through their pilot program, you're going to get the training and you're going to get good training. So that's a great option too if military is something that is calling to you.
Now, obviously, before I get to their questions, a big deal is that you're a female pilot. I've flown maybe I did the math the other night. I think I've flown 100 times in my life, and you are the second female pilot I've ever seen.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was on a plane that you flew from Dallas to Jackson, and I was even asking. I said, "Is that a female pilot?" You don't see that a lot. And this is a field that has really been pushing for diversity from women and minorities. And then the other thing was on my trip out to Las Vegas, when I was coming back, I saw for only this third time in my life a black pilot. Um,
Hmm.
so it really is a field that's getting more and more diverse, but it needs more. And so just talk about, you've done a lot there in the DFW to promote women getting into aviation. And I'm sure people still make comments and maybe give you some thoughts that they are having about a woman being in charge of a flight. So just talk about that because this is one of the last fields that really has a diversity problem.
Yeah, it's definitely getting better for sure. I notice it myself just walking through. I'm just like, whoa, female, female, female. Like all these pilots walk, especially in Charlotte. If you go to Charlotte, we got a lot of our that's kind of one of our bigger bases over there, and we're everywhere over there. But yeah, like with women in aviation, it just kind of brings a different perspective where it's kind of like that's why we have two pilots in the flight deck is you want someone that's kind of in charge and someone else to be like, I think you're making a dumb decision or I think this is a good decision, a second opinion there. And if everyone's from the same background, from the same neighborhood, all of that, like you're not going to get very many different opinions. And so that's why I think it's really important to have that diversity is we can grow a lot better and be better when you have different opinions and be and show like, oh, I don't know if this is the best way to do this. What about this? Having different ideas. So that's my personal reason is why like I think we need that diversity is everyone brings something different to the table. So yeah, I think there was another part to your question, but I think I might have forgot it.
No, no, I was just asking about, do you ever get any types of
Oh.
comments or thoughts from, I hear from a lot of pilots that it's kind of is a good old boys club. It's people whose dads, and I know your dad was a pilot, but it's people
Hmm.
whose dads are pilots, and it's kind of a generational career.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of funny. My dad is a pilot, and two of my brothers, we just were assuming that we're gonna be the ones that we're gonna be pilots. I never even thought I was gonna be the pilot, but it's funny how it works out. But the comments and stuff from passengers most of the time, I try to stand up after the flight and try to stand in the doorway as much as I can, unless we're rushing to get to the next plane. But a lot of times like you can just see people be like, oh, there's a female pilot. Oh, she flew us here like after the flight. Sometimes they don't even realize they're getting on. Everyone's shuffling in with their bags. I have had flight attendants tell me that someone made like a little comment here and there about oh female pilot like oh like I haven't personally really had too many negative comments. Most of the time it's been positive, people getting off and just like oh yeah you go girl and like giving me a fist bump and stuff. So it's been really cool to see, and I do try to, like I said, stand in the doorway just so it is more like in people's faces of being like look, well, we got you here safely. Everything went well. Even if like people are kind of nervous in the aviation industry right now, flying on planes, just the media showing anything and everything that goes wrong. So just, I think there's that fear. And so after a good flight, good landing, all of the above, like it's just kind of like, hey, look who got you here, safe and sound. Like,
Yeah, because
and just
I can speak from personal experience because my flight from Vegas to Dallas that day was horrible, and my flight from Dallas to Jackson that you piloted was 10 million times more comfortable. So I can speak from personal experience on that one. Well, I do
yeah.
have some questions from the students, and these are really good. This first one is Landria Wilder. She's a senior, our student council president here at Velma Jackson, and she's got a couple. But she asked, "What is the most terrifying experience you've ever had as a pilot?"
Uh, Terrifying. I nothing like comes like super to mind except for the first time I when I just first started becoming an instructor. I got the job. I had a student who was working on commercial, and then I also had a student who was working on private. So I started with the commercial student, and so that was kind of easy going through. He already kind of knew how to fly, so I'm just teaching him new stuff. Well, then I get in the plane with the private student, and I hadn't really wrapped my head yet around how little they know, and there's not the experience there. And I'm letting him do the takeoff as we're going up for our practice. And I think maybe he was nervous because I was also a new instructor. It's just a dynamic once you get in the plane. Like they don't want to do something wrong, and I don't want to tell them something wrong. So he just kind of forgot what he was doing and how to fix it and just went full left rudder and just kicked the rudder. I think maybe he was thinking of driving. I don't know, but he took us straight towards the grass while we're taking off. And this is probably like my first week of instructing. So I was like so surprised. It was the first experience of having something that didn't go how I was expecting it to go. And but honestly, it kind of kicked in. All the training that I had, just I took over. So what you do whenever you have something happen, and especially when you're the instructor and the student doesn't know what to do, you tell them my flight controls or my controls, and then they will repeat your controls. And so we did that, my controls, your controls, and I took my controls, and then I just kind of corrected slightly. We were fast enough to take off, so I took off, corrected back over the runway, and then we were climbing out, and I gave him the controls back. But then he didn't want them.
I think I'd be pretty scared too. Now, she also asked, as a woman in this field, is there anything that you've come to that's come to change or help you understand transitioning from a flight attendant to a pilot?
So like the transition or what's the question?
Yeah. Is there anything in this field that you've come to understand differently since you've become transitioned from a flight attendant to a pilot?
Okay. Yeah, well, it's a completely different world up front than I thought it was when I used to be a flight attendant. So we actually kind of have an opposite work schedule during a flight because during like the boarding, flight attendants are pretty busy. We're
Yeah.
busy. That's kind of usually the only time that we're both busy at the same time. But then like for takeoff, obviously the flight attendants are sitting down reviewing their safety information. And then for the pilots are doing a bunch of work for the takeoff. And then once we actually get up to cruise, that's when the pilots kind of, most of the time it's on autopilot. I do know some that like to hand fly it the whole way, but most of the time the plane is on autopilot. We're relaxing, and then the flight attendants are in the back now working, doing their
Yeah.
duties and everything. So that was
Never thought about that. Yeah.
interesting just to
Never thought
see
about
how,
that.
like, yeah, the schedules just fluctuated and everything.
I like this one. This is Cortez Maxwell. He's a junior, and he asked, "What was the hardest part about getting your pilot license?"
The hardest part about getting my license, well, if I got for my private license, it was mostly just the confidence to know that I was ready.
There you go.
Um, that was a big part of it because my instructor told me I was ready for my check ride, but then I was just so nervous about it. I probably did an extra like 7 or 8 flights even like before my check ride that I was like, no, I got to practice this, practice that. So it a lot of it is confidence, and if you just go in like there's even things like landing. Landing was the hardest thing to learn. That was
I
for
would
sure the
imagine.
hardest. But if you
I would
go in
imagine.
saying that like I'm not nervous about this thing anymore. Like there's different types of landing, short field, soft field landings. I used to be really bad at the short fields because you have to hit it exactly like on a point that you pick out. And I would just always kind of float it past. And I'm like, dang. So I told myself, you know what? I got this. They're no issue. And I started getting them. So a lot of the times I think the biggest like hurdle is confidence in what you're doing.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that'd be in any field. Well, I got time for two more. This is London Curry. She's in ninth grade, and she asked, "What is something you wish you knew in school that you know now?"
Oh gosh. Networking is a big thing. I was kind of shy whenever I was younger, and I didn't really think that I would never ever need to be talking to people. Like whatever industry that you go into, networking is probably I think I would say for every field, because it's a lot of times not what you know, it's who you know. So be friends with everybody and get people's information, and don't feel awkward about it, because it's like if they think it's awkward, so what? Like networking is a huge thing, especially now. I wish I would have done it more when I was a flight attendant and even knew about it when I was younger. It makes life so much easier when you know people that are doing things that you want to do, and you can ask them, find mentors, and even like, hey, I don't know about this thing, will you teach me? It goes such a long way.
And I always take that one step farther because I say that a lot too. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it really is. And I agree. And look, and this rule applies to me as well. Nobody is going to come and find you. You have to be the one to put your name out there. So it
Hmm.
really is. And I think young people of all this entire generation struggles with that because you've got to be confident. You've got to be able to speak. You got to be able to articulate. You got to be able to sell yourself. And that's what's going to set people apart no matter what field you go into. So that's a great point.
Yeah.
I got one more. This is Erin Gaines. She's in 10th grade. I'm sorry, in ninth grade. I made her a year older. And she asked, how do you deal with people that are scared to fly and comfort them knowing and tell them it's going to be okay?
Um, well, now I don't really have to do that as much. Since I'm kind of up in the front, no one really comes up to me, except I have had someone be like, oh, they just wanted to come say hi to the pilots just because they're a nervous flyer. So, yeah, we just kind of tell them, hey, look, it's going to be bumpy, or it should be smooth, or if you're whatever, just tell them exactly what's going to happen. And once someone knows what to expect, they get a little bit more comfortable. And when I was a flight attendant, I did have someone in a passenger who would was very nervous and was just called me over to them and was asking me about, oh, what was that? What was that? Every bump that happened, and I just kind of, it's kind of like one of those things where you explain to them, it's like driving on a road that's got potholes, but we've got air potholes basically. So that kind of really gets people like, oh, okay, it's this normal, like it's just a pothole. Like,
Yeah, and it really is. I'm glad you brought that up too, because being a pilot really does the ones that I've noticed that have great communication skills. Those flights are so much more comfortable because I know what to expect. So it's not
mhm,
just I'm in the cockpit not talking to anybody. There's got to be some form of communication with the passengers and with the crew because the pilot is in charge of that flight. Now we're almost
mhm.
out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us, but. Before we go, if these as these kids are matriculating through high school, making decisions for their careers, why should they really consider a career in aviation? Because, like we said, there are so many avenues to get into this, and honestly, I can't think of a better way to see the world.
Mhm. Yeah, it is like I said, I lost my flight benefits and I was like, "Oh no, how do I get those back?" Like that is a huge thing, especially like I've never I have never bought a plane ticket. So I was thinking about it.
Wow.
Yeah, I've never bought a plane ticket, and I have had friends that have asked me like, "Hey, what day is the best day to buy a ticket? When's the cheapest?" And I have no idea. I
Wow.
wish I could help more, but I really don't know how to get those like tricks for the cheapest ticket and stuff like that. But it is like uh, a great career to be able to travel with. It's usually pretty flexible, depends on which job you have, and how much seniority you have as well. But yeah, on days off, sometimes we'll just fly up to Chicago, get a hot dog, or go get some deep dish pizza, and then fly home that night or the next morning or something. You can do really quick trips, or you can go to Japan. Like it's great. It's a great job for travel. That's I think why most people get into the job, but it's also just the flexibility and like having a random Wednesday or Thursday off in the week when everybody's got Monday through Friday, Monday through Friday. If you like flexibility and change, that's kind of why I got into it because I can't stand the Monday through Friday 8 to 5.
Absolutely. Well, again, and that's such a great point, and I really hope we have people consider getting into this field because things are always going to have to be moved. People are always going to have to move. Aviation is always going to be there, and we need more young women. We need more young men. It really needs every kids to think about getting into it. But we thank you so much for fitting this in your schedule, Captain Morgan Hornig, one of the only female pilots I have ever seen fly, and one of the best I've ever flown with. So we thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right. Bye.